Hey, good morning, greetings, welcome everyone to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you are here. Welcome to the Starseed Ministry. It is July 25th, 2022. Welcome back, everyone. It is Monday, July 25th. If you're new here, welcome. Thank you for stopping by, checking out the Starseed Ministry. We do this stream every Monday here at 10 a.m. Eastern on YouTube, and we just kind of check in energetically for the week. We go over the astrology, of course. I offer a reading to give us some guidance and some perspective if it's needed, and we just kind of check in with things and get ourselves tuned into each other, tuned into ourselves, and really ready to face the unfolding of this sacred timeline in a lot of ways. So how is everyone doing? Wow, it was quite a weekend. So we are officially in Leo season now. The sun is at home in the sign of Leo. We have Mercury in Leo as well, and there's going to be a lot of transits that Mercury in Leo is going to be having this week. Big transits, a square to Mars in a trine to Chiron that is now retrograde. There's a lot of fire in the chart right now, and we're also at our balsamic moon, which truly is a reduction or a distilled essence of this entire lunar cycle as it returns back to the point where it started, which is in Cancer. We have Venus in Cancer right now. We have Black Moon Lilith still in Cancer. They're all converging roughly around the same new moon point that we are finishing out its lunar cycle right now. And we have a new moon in Leo. It's going to be on the 28th. August is sure to be exceptionally hot. And, you know, it was a pretty intense weekend. We'll go over the solar weather. There was, as expected, kind of the 1-2 punch of a CME reaching us, as well as solar wind from coronal holes. There was a lot of geomagnetic unrest. I know for me, there was a lot of astral unrest. Really difficult to sleep. Actually, nightmares, which is something that doesn't happen very often anymore. Used to be way more part of my experience. And what I have found is I've learned from those situations and really deconstructed those events, and it gives us a lot of opportunity to be the observer and to step outside of those really intense experience and feelings in order to learn something about them. So how are people doing? Were you able to find any peace or respite? Yesterday certainly was kind of a down day and an integration day. It poured here. It's been really dry, uncharacteristically dry for where I'm currently living for this time of year, and it finally just dumped on us yesterday, and it's been raining all morning. So there's also been kind of this shift or a little bit of a sea change as we prepare to walk through this lion's gate, right? This threshold, the eye of the needle, so to speak. So I'm going to share some promotional material with you guys, but I'm going to check in with the stream here and make sure it's working here. It seems like it's buffering, and I'm really sorry. I think that there's a little bit too much use on the Wi-Fi, but I think that that's settling itself out. So Emily's like, we lost you. Uh-oh, big time buffering. Yeah, see, I had to, I'm not sure where it's coming from. I do see that there is, the reality is that there's somebody else home right now that's using the Wi-Fi, despite I already checked in and was just like, hey, you can't really be streaming movies right now while I'm trying to do this. But so hopefully it'll come back. You might have to turn it off and reboot it, or you may just have to come back for the recording. That's such a bummer. I can see that it's buffering significantly. So let me know if you get back on. I'm just going to keep going here because I am still recording, and that's still going to be without any buffering, thankfully. So I'm sharing here, actually, this is a picture that somebody took based on the auroras that were present this weekend because of all of the CME and the solar wind sparking auroras. And this is actually Hood River in Oregon, if you're familiar with that area. So this is Mount Hood area. So even as far south as Oregon, there were auroras that were visible as a result of the solar weather. So, yeah, it's astral unrest. Yeah, big time. So, and it seems like maybe this is a part of it as well. It's too bad that I didn't have a chance to reboot my machine or my connection in order to reestablish. Yeah, see, I can still see it's buffering to reestablish my network connection, because it just seems like something else is really drawing on it right now. So, I'm just going to keep going ahead. I'm sorry, guys, if it's not working for the stream. We'll just have to catch up with each other on the recording. So let's look at the space weather, because that's a pretty good indication of how much unrest there really was over the weekend. And then we'll transition into the reading. Let's see here. I'm going to do this. And we're going to look at... Oh no, we do want to stay right there. So we're going to move into the space weather, my friends. So, and really the solar weather, which is, now that we're talking about a sun in Leo, and we're talking about Leo season and the solar energy, it's, you know, it's important to understand what our sun is actually doing so that we can kind of coordinate our own process along with the sun. So here's the Schumann over the weekend, right? Saturday, Sunday into Monday. So some pretty significant spikes, but they were pretty short-lived for the most part. Still intense, right? But not very drawn out, thankfully. But there was, like I said, a lot of solar weather over the weekend. So one of the things, here's the planetary index, right? This geomagnetic unrest that was really peaking around Saturday, which is when we got the CME, when we got the wind, the solar wind from the coronal hole. So it was really impacting. And again, KP5 is not like scary. It's like just touching the edge of unrest. So it's not nearly as bad as it could be up here, KP8 or 9. That would be something very obvious to us. But still, there was a lot of unrest and astral kind of infiltration and things coming out of, seemingly out of the woodwork. So one thing I'd like to share with you, though, that was pretty substantial, and it's a good thing that it's not facing us, because this was a huge eruption, as you can see here, on Saturday night into Sunday, and it's not coming towards us, thankfully. And imagine if it was. Look at the spread of this ejection. And so if you look at this little yellow dot right here, this is actually Earth. So it's in complete opposition to where we are. But imagine if we were going to get the full brunt of that CME. I think that we would find a lot of disturbance because of that. Still showing that the sun is incredibly active, but in this case, it's not facing towards us. Look at this. Huge CME. So the sun is still very active, but there's no coronal holes facing us, which is a good thing. And you can even see that a lot of the sunspots that are active, these active regions, they're all starting to turn away from us. And there's one right here that seems pretty gnarly that could do something at any moment, right? If it's unstable. But for the most part, it seems like this whole lunar cycle was really preparing the vessel in a lot of ways. And the Lilith work that we've been doing has been about the necessity for having that space within us and that infinite void within us in order to allow the catalyzing reaction, the spark of divinity to really inhabit us and to activate us as a being, a spiritual being in this material experience. So it's been very difficult, but it's also been a very necessary process. And now it's still also, here, I'm going to take this away for now. It's not only is it's been a very difficult process, and as much as I would like to say we're going to get some sort of respite, I think what we're going to find is that we're, moving through the eye of the needle, so to speak, right? Coming into the Lion's Gate, crossing this threshold, being reborn in a lot of ways, moving through the birth canal in this, very narrow passageway that requires that all of our baggage is released before we pass through. It's almost if this weekend was it was an intensification and a distillation of all the baggage that's still maybe left behind when it comes to a lot of where we feel we belong, where we're wanted, what we're giving our energy to, where we feel protected and safe. And the converse of that, especially the Cancer energy, is the isolationism, the sense of overprotection, the sense of, really consolidating power to the point where nobody can get out, or there isn't any permeability in order to grow or to expand beyond. And so we've been really, I think, all of us addressing these issues, and really over the last weekend, like I said, as we're coming into our balsamic moon, it's in a very distilled state, right? And distillation, there's a lot of ways you can distill a substance, right? What does that mean? You're basically taking it down to its base essence. And so essential oils are often distilled by a number of different methods. You can use alcohol, you can use steam to distill, you can use all kinds of substances actually as a solvent to distill that essence. In the cannabis industry, it's huge for oil, different types of oil that you can either vaporize or consume orally or take as a tincture. It all comes down to this process. And surely you can use a number of types of solvents, but a great way to distill things, steam requires heat, a catalyzing type of energy. And with the Sun and Mercury in Leo, we have Jupiter soon to go retrograde. We have Chiron already retrograde. There's a lot of fire right now, especially in Leo, this combust energy that is in fact, I think, providing that heat, that catalyzing force to distill some of this baggage down to its base essence. And it's very potentially intuitive and very powerfully emotional when we're talking about Cancer and the moon in Cancer. So for as much as we've set some intentions this month to really identify and grow within the framework of some type of force or personality, right? A character that we want to grow into. There was Lilith right there that was also reinforcing the necessity to let go of the need to have that, and to be willing to almost be a childlike in the way that we reach out for an elusive but very pure understanding of our role within life. And I think it's made it very difficult. And whatever has not been cleared away from that is, like I said, distilled. And all of this Leo energy, I think, is making it that much more of an accelerated process. And so you may find yourself overwhelmed. You may find yourself bombarded. You may find yourself almost forced through this process in a way that's very uncomfortable. And, Venus being in Cancer, as we're going to see today, is and throughout her time in Cancer, but she's really close to this new moon and in a square to Jupiter today. So that same dynamic is coming back around as we're about to finish this lunar cycle, and Jupiter is going to station retrograde at the new moon. So there's a lot of tying things up and a preparation for this, almost for this turning the expansiveness inward, or it may even feel like a balloon deflating in some ways with Jupiter stationing retrograde, and our sense of who we are in this subjective I am that Aries represents has been very inflated and has allowed for us to see the full picture, to feel the full picture, to identify the meaning of who we are in this fullness that is now going to start even contracting. And when, if you have something that is I guess something that is, you blow up a balloon and you draw something on it. So, and then it deflates, right? That entire image is going to be distorted and not really but you won't even be able to see what it actually was. And I feel like Jupiter in its retrograde is going to be testing that big time for us. So, whatever was left over still, I mean, the distillation at a purely intuitive, emotional, even subconscious level, I think was really brought out and like I said, accelerated through this process somehow, either in your dreams. You may have found it come up in your relationships. It's important to know where Cancer is in your chart and what else is surrounding it, because it's going to give you a lot more pieces of your puzzle to figure out, okay, this is the area of life that this is impacting. So pretty intense right now, definitely. So yeah. So everybody's saying that, there's people that are saying they have to give up. The extended periods of silence are way longer. This is odd. The outage is lasting a few minutes. The recording is not going to be impacted by the streaming. It's on a completely different program and has nothing to do with the streaming quality. 10 words at a time and then long periods of silence. Yeah, I can see that my internet, my Wi-Fi signal is really bad. So, I mean, I could reboot it right now, but I also feel like that I'm just going to keep going with it because I'm like really in the flow right now. And so I know that that's not ideal for people in the stream. And like I said, this is not ideal for me either. So hopefully we can all get something out of it. So I'm going to bring up a couple of things right now, actually. First thing I want to bring up is that we are coming into a new moon phase. And so the Leo and Aquarius folks the lunar transit forecast is open now for you. And you can book at catalystenergies.net. And so it's a sale price for the lunar transit forecast. So for Leo and Aquarius rising, moon and sun, this sale rate is open for you now. And it looks at the next lunar cycle, the new moon in Leo, the fact that August is got all these incredible transits that are going to be impacting us really strongly. So for those of you who are Leo and Aquarius people, this is open for you now. The link to the website is in the description box below. So, and the other thing I really am very excited to be sharing with you guys is that I'm going to be doing a special live stream event with my good friend Kiana from Aurora Creative Healing that is going to be about the Sirius rising in the Lion's Gate. And so we're going to be doing this live stream event on Sunday the 31st at 1 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be streaming from our YouTube channels, hopefully, fingers crossed here. And it's called Let's Get Serious. It's brilliant, right? It's absolutely brilliant in terms of just encompassing so much of what we're going to talk about. So I'm going to be doing the astrology of Sirius rising and the Lion's Gate, and looking at the general themes moving through the rest of the summer to the equinox, which is September. And Kiana is going to be her superstar self and channel messages and share other messages that she's channeled leading up to this event as well. So I'm really excited to be offering this to you guys. So just keep an eye out for more material, but this is the flyer. I'm going to put it on Telegram and Facebook, and it's going out to the email list right now. So as of today. So I just wanted to share that with you guys too. I've been talking about it, and now we actually have it on the books. So my friends, here is today's reading. Boy, oh boy. So what's interesting here is that we've gotten some returning players here, especially at the heart of this reading, which is the Devil, and it's in this really balanced position. And if you remember from last week's reading, this was in the reversal position as our causal factor. And so now it's kind of like moved into position into the current, like what's at the heart of the matter. And I think it's really interesting that it's found some level of balance. It hasn't been fully rendered upright, but at the same time, we don't have as much resistance to the breakdown as we may have had. And in fact, if you look at the full horizontal axis here, the Hierophant, the Devil, right, and the Lovers, these are very all connected to each other. Number 5, number 15 is the Devil card, and the Lovers is number 6. And so there is a lot of connection. And then 3 trump cards across the board here. We're in a really powerful moment here. So what I think, we'll go through it, but I think that that's very, very interesting. And and it really underscores how powerful it really seems to be right now. So let's get into the specifics here. All right, guys. So our Hierophant card is number 5, right? And it truly represents the High Priest, right? So number 2 in the tarot is the High Priestess, and so number 5 as the High Priest is the masculine side of the Taurus energy, right? And it does truly seem to represent the ability to reflect the sacred feminine, the mystery, right? And you can even see that very well established in this card, as you see in the background, the feminine figure, and has this torch in front of her that is lighting up her as a silhouette, but also is reflecting off of the figure of the Hierophant or the High Priest. And these are masks of different animals, and of course a human that is surrounding. You can even see the bull is in fact in this is seemingly in half, but it's really just kind of draped over the Hierophant, almost like some sort of stole or something like that. And you have these elephants on the other side, very grounded. It is the Taurus card, and as a teacher or a set of principles, in a lot of ways, it represents the natural truth, the knowing of what is. And again, it's about being able to reflect out the mysteries that are embedded within life of the sacred feminine. So just in general, this card has a lot to do with teaching of inner values, the vision of eternity, right, that is able, again, to be reflected and projected out. And so in its reversal, there's a lot of things that this could be related to, but a lot of times it means kind of a blind faith in dogma rather than doing the research to come to those conclusions based on your own experiences. This can be bigotry and intolerance for anything and everything that is not part of the dogma, right? Too fixed, right? Not any, there's no porous or permeability. There's nowhere to dig into. It is just a fixed set of principles or dogma. And this does lead to bigotry, because you're just like, everything else is not, within this framework, must be wrong. This also can be without the set of value and principle that we have come to discover on our own, or at least through our own study and research to find truth or inner value. We may run to a new belief system just because the last one is unsatisfying. And so rather than being comfortable in the void, right, which is what Lilith really establishes for us, is not even comfortability, but just forcing us to leave that space there, we may find ourselves not really comfortable there and wanting to, jump. And you can see that in a lot of cases as well. And then the intolerance, the bigotry. And then the one thing, when I was doing the research for the card, one of the things that came out was esoteric nonsense. And I thought that was kind of interesting, because I feel like that a lot of word salad comes out of people in the communities that consider themselves to be New Age or esoteric, without any really fundamental grounding in any reality. So, this card as the causal factor is more of just kind of I would say that you can see all sides of this situation really showing itself in past situations. Perhaps it's a past incarnation. Perhaps this is something that you have been involved in the past. Maybe this is something that is not quite really gotten itself out of our system yet. But I think a lot of us do feel and recognize where this has already established itself in some other particular situation, or at a large collective level, how this has in fact been kind of the causal factor, or certainly the factor that's been coming from where we currently are now, which is, the devil card in this like horizontal position as we go to next is we're not quite fully aligned with the Capricornian matrix that is right now, but we're also not resisting it. We don't feel left out. There's not as much isolation or resistance to it. To this as well. And so in its horizontal position, I feel like at the heart, it really does suggest that, for as much as the independence and the unfolding into uncompromising, no restrictions, no rules, against all dogma. This is kind of what this card represents, right? Is that we are unfolding based on our relationship to the institutions, just like the Hierophant, right? Establishing that very strong relationship and reflecting and projecting out what is. And through that, there is a collective crystallization of moving forward. But at the same time, this can, obviously, as we know, this can really go dark very quickly. And so it's not like we're fully, like I said, we're not fully engaged in the materium that would unfold from a strict or dogmatic approach to spiritual or inner values, but we're also not completely feeling I feel like we're not necessarily feeling the destructive element or the isolation or loneliness or misunderstanding that this card usually means in its reversal, right? That we don't feel like we belong anywhere, or that nobody really understands us because we're of all the same understanding when the materium is is unfolding. The fractal geometry of reality is unfolding. And that means that we have to, have the ambition and kind of the courage to go along with it. This is a very Lyran trait, by the way. So there's something here that it's like we're kind of almost at peace with it. And as we go through the rest of the reading, I think we're going to see why. Because energetically, at the root here, we know we're at this harvest moment. So the Four of Forces represents the dichotomy of the spring and the autumn, right? The equinoxes, the balance of light and dark. In its reversal, as we see in the reading, it is the autumn, right? It is the harvest. And we're called upon to gather the results of our actions, right? And to enjoy the fruits of our labor. Maybe we need to put some final action into this situation energetically. Perhaps it's happening at a subconscious level, right? Where it's really the core of where our power is coming from. And it's important to live in appreciation what is grown and what is being harvested and returned back to something more than ourselves. And so I think why this devil card, for instance, is in this position of almost balance, like we're being at peace with it. And certainly not, it's like we're not giving it our full power, but we're not also like feeling the resistance necessarily of what has, when we break forward or break out of this really strict dogmatic approach. And I think it's because it's all about these cycles just coming around, and just like the autumn, right? It's the harvest time. It's kind of what it's all been for, is to gather in the results of all our labors and all of our resources and all of our learning and our ability to develop character from that and a sense of real belonging. So at the root here, there is a knowing, right, that we're at this harvest moment. And in fact, I would say even here, number 16. So you have 5, you have 15, you have 16, and then you have 6, the lovers, as our outcome. But in this reversal position, caught in the ruins, it's like we know that the situation, this dark and confining situation, is coming to an end. So it's definitely related to this blind, dogmatic, very fixed belief system, sense of value, right? Like getting into the bigotry of anything outside of it, right? There's that isolationism again, that is a really dark side of the Cancerian archetype. But I think that we collectively, we are aware that, whoa, that's not, we're free. We're free to establish what is valuable to us, and we have been, and to come out of that really blindly dogmatic perspective, right? And that can be from a lot of different places. So when you have caught in the ruins and it's reversal, we know now, we are aware a dark confining situation has come to an end. Now, old stories can pull us back so easily. And it's important to feel the feels of those past experiences, whether they were a past incarnation, your past in this lifetime, right? A past collective history, whatever it is, it's important to know what that feels like and not get caught back up in the old habits that we, which is Chiron, right? Chiron retrograde, it is not going to be easy, because these are themes that have to do with the ways that we have stayed attached to an old identity that has been basically given to us, that we haven't really established for ourselves. And it's easy to get pulled back in. And it's going to be even more painful with Chiron retrograde and Jupiter stationing retrograde, because this is going to be even more tempting to get pulled back into that old story as a means to feel protected and safe and like you belong to something. But we know now there's a big cycle that is finishing itself out, and we know we're already out. We're not in that place anymore. We may have been, and we may revisit that through this distilled balsamic moon phase, that sometimes when you find yourself imitating that which you want to grow into, imagine if that which you want to grow into was already programmed or established as something that it turns out it's not. It's more of a suppressive thing. So I also feel like that we've had to go through that this month and really be very clear with ourselves, what aspects we want to bring into ourselves again, and what are we truly free from. So this is individual to you based on, what you're going through, what your life is like, what your chart looks like. But this is a pretty collective theme, I would say, with what's going on with the Cancer energy, with Lilith and Venus in Cancer, right? Returning to the new moon. And then we move forward to the Lovers. This is really... we're making a commitment to a new version of ourselves, right? The 6 or the Lovers is the Gemini card, and it's the combination of contrast, right? We make a decision to see ourselves in our opposition. We make a decision to find the reflection of ourselves in that which appears opposite to us. We say farewell to the past or a former way of life and fully accept and devote ourselves to the future or our new growth, right? And we make a decision and commit. The Lover's card is about committing to this process. So, all of the imagery, right, of the dialectic is here, and very much a conscious coming together that is brought out in this card. And then you see the cosmic egg, you see the serpent, surrounding the cosmic egg. Something brand new is born of this commitment. And so, but it really does take going deeply into the feels of what has happened in the past when we found ourselves confined to this very strict and dogmatic belief system or sense of value that has not allowed us to grow. And part of what is being, the destruction of the old guard literally is giving us the opportunity to bust out of that and make it, who do we want to be? We get to make that decision. And part of that is this harvest period. So at the root, right, of us is the turning over. And there have been a lot of really uncomfortable past life experiences. I have no doubt, I can say for me personally, that have led us, and in this lifetime now, that have led us to this moment so that we can feel what it's like to feel trapped in a situation based on values, based on belief systems, based on, the spiritual vision. I mean, that's one of the most insidious and most exploitive way, a cult, right? Is where you get people into that mindset based on belief system. So, and we've already bust through, and I think right now what we're experiencing collectively is the realization of that, and why, what it has left for us in the past, what keys were left in that situation that are now leading us to a devotion to something new, something in the future, something that is not tied to this limiting belief system. So we have our bird's nest here. This is our guidance point, right? These 4 points surrounding this reading. The 3 of forces, right? So we have the 4 forces reversed. We have the 3 of forces, the bird's nest, right? That we have to create the container in order for new life to grow. Forces of creativity and expansion and being open to new additions. It does take some time to build the nest, just like it takes time to harvest the materials of what we have been cultivating. And we have all the resources that we need, because especially if we have been engaged in this process in particular, right? That we have been creating a space, if we have been nurturing a nest in some ways, if we have been allowing for that creativity and expansion as other aspects of ourselves are being sent back and returned to source as an experience that has been vital to us. And of course, we're going to be coming to the Lion's Gate, passing through the eye of the needle, which is directly related to the camel, obviously, and that's based on a real process. When you were coming through the gates of these ancient cities in the Middle East and Sumeria, Babylon, as a mechanism of protection and defense, right? They would be tiny passageways in order to get into these cities, and you would have to literally take all of the baggage off of the camel if you wanted to pass through this place. And it really is very reminiscent of the spiritual and more esoteric, stripping away all of the baggage in order to get through the eye of the needle, which is why Jesus said that it would be easier for the camel to pass through the eye of the needle than a rich person to get into the kingdom of heaven, right? You have to, you can't have anything. You have to strip it all down in order to make this transition. And so this shows that we have everything that we need. All the resources are within us. Just like you take all your baggage off the camel, but the camel's fine because it's got all of the water inside of its body that it needs for its journey. So, and the same thing with the bird's nest. It's just, we have everything we need within us. We don't need these outer structures right now to provide our sense of who we are. And if we keep relying on that, then our sense of who we are is going to just, it's just going to dissolve away with Neptune, right? And that's something that is individual to people's soul contracts and what their journey is. But for starseeds, we didn't really necessarily come here not to be part of maintaining the resonance of where humanity is going back to, right? Which is to a higher dimensional, higher density version of ourselves, right? It's about opening up this space in order to resonate with that. It's not exactly about raising anything as much as providing for the ability to harmonize with what already exists at that level of the fifth density or fifth dimension, right? It's about being able to actually match the resonance. And there have been plenty of opportunities, and this is something that's come up in the Catalyst Classroom and certainly Starseed Fellowship conversations about there are, just as much as there's astral intrusion, there's also these ways to practice getting harmonically resonant with those densities, right? That are kind of pushing their way in a gentle way. And I feel like the Schumann may be part of that. I don't think always. I think that there are times where it is not for our benefit, and that it's artificially being induced. But I think also with this solar activity that is so strong right now, there is and I said it on Friday, right? It's like contractions almost. And the contractions are making the passageway what it needs to be, right? The right diameter, so to speak. And which has its own pitch, it has its own frequency to that too, and it's the same thing. So this here, I'm not surprised this came up, and it really is about trusting that we have the resources. We've already gone through so many things in this life and in previous lifetimes that have given us the capacity to choose, like, okay, this is what this feels like, right? And when certain things trigger that, to be aware, to step outside of it and be like, oh yeah, this feels like this same thing. And what am I going to do with that feeling? So, but this is like everything we've gone through is already inside of us. And we can confront the situations because everything we need is within us. And in many ways, we've already been, lovingly creating that space and preparing for the harvest of everything that is ready to be released back to the void, so to speak. So, now, this is very interesting to me. The kiwi and then balance, right? The 7 of forces, which is balance. And when you do a walking meditation, clearly you are balancing two sides of yourself when you walk, right? It has to be coordinated from this back and forth push and pull aspect in order to walk anywhere. So when you're doing it intentionally and as a meditation, it keeps you focused on this process of balance that's literally brought into your proprioception. It's brought into your sense-based feelings of what balance in your body feels like, so that you don't get pulled back into those old narratives and structures that have imprisoned us at a spiritual level and an emotional level, an energetic level, maybe a physical level for a really long time. And balance, the 7 of forces, another forces-based card here, is exactly what it looks like, balance. And justice is, those things are, and reciprocity, those things are energetic experiences. And the best way to kind of keep that balance in our own energy, I would say, is to practice the very basic things that bring that sense of balance and coordination into your body. So walking meditation is a great way to do it, but there are plenty of ways that we can establish this balance in our physical self. And, Venus has a lot to do with this as well. I tend to really experience Venus transits and activations in my physical person, in my body. So, and in Cancer right now, I mean, she really is feeling into those inner vulnerable spaces. And so the balance is important, and to keep ourselves healthy and balanced so that the flow is not stagnated or so consolidated that nothing is able to actually flow. And Chiron, I'm telling you, retrograde, 16 to 17 degrees Aries right now, knowing it's going to come back to this point later. I mean, we're really addressing the issues of why we may have felt the need to stay in that closed loop of generating our own energy, because it's been very, potentially very upsetting and triggering, and has not gone well in the past, right? To start to apply that energy to something outside of us, to give it, to give ourselves over almost to it. And I keep thinking about like a cult, right? Because it gets down to to spirit and spiritual beliefs, inner vision, inner values, and can really draw you in based on just those things. You don't even have to be physically confined in a situation like that to be actually confined and feel like you have to escape from that situation. So you may, this is expressing itself in a number of different ways. And, the sun and Mercury in Leo is kind of the antidote in a way, because Leo is all about the individual expression, creative expression, our voice, our own resonance. But if we are embedded in a situation that's kind of like a cult, for instance, I'm just using it as imagery, what we express, our resonance, is not our own. It is being hijacked and used for something else and can be very detrimental. So I think there has been a collective realization of this at some level, and it is this distilled essence that is now with the balsamic moon in Cancer. So when we come into the new moon in Leo, it's almost like we're going to have this opportunity to give up the relativity of these social values that really do start to form within the Cancerian container of our close relationships, a spiritual community, a clan, a region, a family, right? All these types of identities that are able to develop based on the characterization of this closed system, right, that protects us. But even those things, it's not it's the quality of how those connections are made, and ultimately what it is that it's either trying to protect or contain, and for what reason. And so when one expresses themselves like they would do with a Mercury and Leo, for instance, that resonance is going to be based on that situation. And so it seems to me at this point that the Sun and Mercury can be the antidote, if we are setting this next new moon intention about really committing to a reality where these values at the end of the day are really relative to the human experience. And that's something I think is worth committing to. It's not going to be easy. August is going to be a very hot month on so many levels. But if we're committed to the process of seeing each other as human, as equal, as brothers and sisters, as family, and not caught in the web of something that is already on its way out and has been, and keeps us confined in these identities, then we're going to have the resources we need to get through this, to pass through the eye of the needle, to move through this evolutionary birth canal in some ways. But there is a sense of committing to this process. So that's the reading for today. So I'm going to bring up the, one second here, guys. Let's look at the chart for today and kind of ground ourselves here in what the astrology is going to look like. Now, we did talk about it. We did definitely talk about it on Friday. There's going to be a new moon report for the Leos that's coming here this week, because we do have our new moon on the 28th in Leo. So that's going to be coming as well. So you want to be subscribed if you want to know when that video drops on all of my platforms. And all of those are linked in the description box below, so that you also know when that's happening. In terms of when I upload new videos, when I upload the things like the new moon and the full moon reports for the signs of that month, and also when I'm going to be streaming stuff as well. So we see that Venus and Jupiter are in a square today, right? And the moon will be finishing her transit of Gemini. So we're even still feeling this Gemini dialectic within ourselves of the back and forth. And without the back and forth, there is truly nothing to commit to, right? If there's no opposition or choice, then there's no choice to necessarily be made. And that's where we're kind of still tonight, overnight into this morning and into, early this afternoon. It is really kind of finishing up this story in a lot of ways within ourselves, right? That Gemini dialectic or polarization, and what it provides for us internally, emotionally, intuitively. And it's in a trine very early this morning, late last night, in a trine with Saturn retrograde. And this takes us back to that first Sagittarius full moon that was not eclipsed, right? That was earlier this earlier this summer. That was about having the resistance to skate along in order to really triumph over all of those really strong and resistant. Again, like it's using the resistance as a means to almost prove to yourself and to practice and perfect the ability to just skate over the ice, right? You're not going to get deterred by the fact that the ice is, or the water is frozen. You're like, all right, I'll slap on a pair of skates and off I go, right? Without the resistance, there's no way to show how one can overcome that type of chaos in one's life. And so with the moon here and then Saturn, boy, this was a real grounding rod for us in a way that was like, I know this sucks and I know this is really difficult. And with Saturn, it's really like this is here in order for each of us then to be able to establish deep wisdom and to communicate it for those who are not going to be able to handle this August very well. And we're all going to have challenges. And that's not to say that, that somehow we're kind of like going to be outside of these challenges. No, but we've done it enough times as starseeds that we're going to be able to bring those past experiences to, to the forefront as a means to show ourselves that not only do we have all the resources we need to kind of overcome the resistance in our own lives, even within ourselves. It's actually exactly what is, stabilizing and stabilized by Saturn retrograde in Aquarius that is giving us a sense of real responsibility, and it's been relentless. We are going to overcome our passions in order to communicate the wisdom from those past experiences. But we have to feel into the resistance in it of itself so that we know that we've done it before. And I think that this was something that I know for me personally, this really came out in my dream state last night. So this was a real anchor into that moment, but not exactly an enjoyable one, unless you really like ice skating. I mean, that's the other thing. If you really enjoy the challenge, especially as an Orion starseed, then this is something that is going to get you motivated and really firmly give you confidence in your ability to do so because you've done it already. So, the thing is that Venus today is, like I said, in a square to Jupiter. This is where Jupiter's going to retrograde, 8 to 9 Aries, and 8 to 9 Cancer is exactly where Lilith was at the new moon, right? This is where we were at the beginning of this lunar cycle. Venus is here and making it very visceral, very palpable to our senses, to our relationships, to our own embodied sense of belonging, our own sense of family and connection, and where we feel safe and vulnerable, emotionally vulnerable. Venus uses her body, her magnetic fields, right? She knows what energy feels like in her body, right? That is what Venus can represent for us. And in this area, she is even more sensitive. So in a square to Jupiter, again, it's we have to be, I would say, willing to still go into almost the unknown part of expanding this core of who we are. We have to give ourselves over a little bit here, just like the seed has to crack open in order for the germination to happen. And Jupiter and Chiron are in the sign of the seed, and they're about to station retrograde. So there may be much more of a I don't want to come out of this shell energy, or it feels like that the safest place is within my own ego structure. And Venus is really challenging this of just like, we have to go forward. We can't be afraid of what we have experienced before. And in fact, that experience was most likely preparing us so that we have the capacity to make a more informed and sovereign choice right now. It's just going to be difficult. It really is over the next many months with these two retrograde in Aries. So this actually, Chiron's going to be the focus of the August Catalyst Classroom. So keep an eye out for material on that. You can subscribe through Subscribestar. It's in the description box below. So this is the big one for right now. But Mercury now in Leo is going to have a number of connections. Number one, it's going to be in a square to Mars. We talked about this on Friday, where we are really expressing and verbalizing perhaps, and finding a cognitive experience even a traveling experience along the light beam that comes off of the sun in a way that is, look what I've done already, right? I'm going to present this to the world like you're on your own parade float or something, right? It's it's like pageantry, and it's very dramatized. And that is the Leo energy to a T. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just this week when Mercury is in a square to Mars, it is going to be really challenging the action. It's one thing for Mercury to be riding the light beam, so to speak, and for us to individually cognize our own expression and bring it through our own individual consciousness. It's going to be Mars in Taurus, especially at 15 degrees Taurus, which is really braving the storm, to put it real simply, right? That you flip your collar, you put your hood up, and you just put your head down and off you go. And Mars, great energy to have the courage to do that. But the square with Mercury is going to be, well, what am I saying, right? What am I expressing? What am I cognizing? How is this resonance coming through my mental faculties here? And Mars is like, I am putting our energy towards braving this storm in a very physical way right now. And the storm may be your finances with Taurus, right? It may be your health when Taurus in the second house. It may be any type of material aspect. It may be the collective energies and traditions you were literally born into, right? The second house in Taurus is the physical world. So there's all of the things that have to do with your physicality. Getting through, pushing through, developing character, where Mercury wants to be like, hey, look at what I've done already. And those things don't have to be mutually exclusive. It's in the square, this fixed energy, that is going to bring out our most growth. And I think it may be one of those experiences where I don't want to say where we compartmentalize, but it might need to be necessary in some ways, where the mind and the speech is in harmony with your true resonance now of what you've kind of come out of, while Mars is like, yo, we need to really think about reality over here and what's going on in this present moment. And so I'm curious to see how this really unfolds, because it seems like it could very easily shut down something that's really important, which is to put ourselves at the center of our experience for just enough time to be like, hey, look at who I am, right? About to release this energy into the world. So, and Mars, the further it gets into Taurus, the more irritated it's getting. And, it's just like, it's like a bull that is like, scratching the ground and getting ready to take off and go running. And so there's the frustration, I think, is really going to mount here with this. So, and the other thing that's going to be part of this week, at least leading up to the new moon, right, which is going to be on the 28th, and that's going to be roughly 2 p.m. Eastern, the new moon in Leo. But leading up to that point is tomorrow, which is Tuesday, and that's, the moon comes into Cancer, so it's going to meet Lilith, it's going to meet Venus. This is where Mars and Mercury are square, and I think that this will be a truly distilled version of what's going on here. So when the moon comes into Cancer and crosses all these points. So the best thing to do in a balsamic moon like this is to not really try to make any decisions necessarily, or plan, act on something new. In a lot of ways, you don't even really want to act on anything unless it's something that you absolutely have to, that's been put into place, right? But it's really a time of deep stillness and experience, and there's nothing wrong with that. It could just be very powerful and very sensitive, because it's the moon, it's Black Moon Lilith, and it is Venus in Cancer. So it's just like across the board, and all of like the real feminine representatives in the zodiac. So that's going to be into tomorrow, and then we have our new moon on the 28th in Leo. So we can go ahead and check that out real quick. because I'm going to be doing, on Friday's stream will be the whole of August in terms of a monthly astrology report. So we'll look at the new moon here on the 28th, right? The 28th is what I said, because it's actually getting into, strangely enough, it's going to be a grand square. And we know what those grand squares really represent. Actually, it's more of Mercury that's in the grand square. So you have this grand square with Mercury in Leo, with the nodes with Saturn in Aquarius, right? So you have a grand cross with these two oppositions. You have a new moon in Leo, and you have Venus and Lilith conjunct Sirius at the new moon. So, wow. Grand squares, you don't get around them, right? There is something we're all facing together in this grand square that has to do with our individual voice versus the the larger fractal reality and the force field of the collective voice and our responsibility to that, and the density of that with the Saturn, especially its retrograde. And then you have a new moon in Leo, and you have Venus and Lilith conjunct at Sirius. I mean, at this point, the formless void, right? The infinite source of our own power, right? Connecting into the sacred goddess through Sirius, through the sign of Cancer, and through Venus and Black Moon Lilith, like those two together at this point. It's going to be such a powerful moment that we can really take that energy and find our center within life. And when we do that, it's a lot easier, I think, or certainly more simplistic in a lot of ways, to set the intention of, I see you as, equal to me. Our voice is our equal. And fashion and social morals, in a lot of ways, are relative to the experience of the human to human connection. And if we can set that intention for ourselves, I think we'll be doing okay through this really challenging month of August. It's this grand square along the axis of our soul's journey, right? Which is the North Node, and we have Uranus involved, right? They're pretty much within a degree of conjunction. We have Mercury in Leo, and it's the soul moving along the axis of power and resources, right? The North Node in Taurus, the South in Scorpio, power, empowerment, the generation, production, distribution of power and resources, in a square to the resonance of us, our individuality, and the collective voice. I think that also too, you're going to see, I feel like that we're gonna see so much, and there's just no way of getting around this. Like I said, a grand square. So in galactic astrology for star seeds, these grand squares keep us in our lane, right? They are built into the picture, and they provide a challenge that is so fruitful if we face it head on, and you start to kind of spin this and you don't even realize it's a square anymore. It's just kind of a rotating vortex, right? And I feel like that's one of the best ways to make the best use of a grand square, is to find the way that you can spin this, right, in order to create some sort of vortex for yourself that allows you to be still in the center of this and be the observer, as all of this energy is kind of like swirling around you, just like the eye of the storm. So I'm gonna have lots of information for you guys on Friday for the astrology report stream. We're going to look at all of August, as a general theme here. But this new moon coming up Wednesday in this balsamic phase right now, it is really distilling things down to their base essence. And important that we realize that it's all been so that we know what that base essence is, and we are being conscious about how we are bringing ourselves into a new cycle of growth, and not feeling like we are trapped in the old version of all of those things. And I think we do know this, right? We do know this. So lots continues to happen out there in the world. Lots continues to happen within ourselves very suddenly and very powerfully. So if you are finding value in this content, please consider subscribing if you're not subscribed already. Certainly consider liking this content, sharing it, commenting on it. I'm really sorry about the stream today. It was something that I hadn't even considered until it was almost too late in terms of rebooting my connection to the modem, but the replay is going to be just fine. And in fact, I probably just upload the recording directly to YouTube instead of letting them upload the replay of the stream. So, and of course, if you are interested in a reading or energy work to support your process, I'm offering a lot of sales, Starseed Appreciation, the Leo and Aquarius lunar transit forecasts. That's all on the website, linked in the description box below. So I'm going to leave it there for today, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me. I truly appreciate each and every one of you so very much. Let me know if you need anything, and I'll see you all on Friday for the Catalyst monthly astrology report for August. So take care, everyone. Have a great day.